Hey guys, welcome back. Today we got a new 3D printer to unbox, and it's made by a company called TwoTrees. So this is a quite unique and interesting printer, and its main feature being a Core X Y machine. So in this video we're gonna unbox it, put it together, and do our first print. Alright, so let's get started. So this is what the box looks like that it comes in. It's actually not a big box. So you see my hand, it's not a large box, but it is very heavy. On the shipping label it says 31 pounds, and that's quite heavy for this size of a box. And because it's kind of heavy, it has a few battle scars here and there, here being quite a severe one. Hopefully nothing got damaged. Alright, so it looks like we have a couple bands here we need to take off. So I did get this printer from a company called TwoTrees, and the model number of this printer is called Sapphire. And you can see here they got me the right voltage for the US market. Alright, so let's cut the tape. Alright, so let's see what we have inside. A manual. It's actually quite a substantial manual. It's got thick paper and quite a nice little booklet here. So they definitely took care in making the manual nice. And hopefully we'll be able to put it all together with no issues. Very cool. Alright, so let's continue. So this looks like a plate or a bag, or maybe the underneath plate to the printer. It's a metal plate, but it's quite thin, so it flexes quite easy, as you can see. But it looks like it's just a cover. So here we have another foam. Alright, so the first thing we see here is looks like boxes. So the thing about this printer is it is an assembly required kind of printer. So it's not going to be something that you just pull out of the box and print. You will have to have some assembly, but hopefully it won't be too hard and we'll be able to put this thing together pretty quick. So it looks like we have metal rods here, a lead screw, more metal rods that are smaller. So we have boxes here. So I'm just gonna pull these out and then we're gonna look at them and see what's inside of them. So some 2020 channels, a quite large box, and quite heavy. So it looks like we have another level of foam. So as you can see guys, the printer is packed quite well and protected. Alright, so it looks like we have some kind of frame piece here. So this does look like the top of the printer. And so we go to another layer. A lot of foam. Very well packed. Alright, and so this looks like our base here. I think the base is pre-assembled somewhat. And that's what it kind of looks like. And here on the bottom we can see all of our electronics and things. So this is definitely going to be an involved assembly. Alright, and so for the last part we have a little boxed frame here of 2020. And that appears to be everything in the box. So for the next part, let's look at what's inside of these boxes here. So we'll start with the small one. So it looks like we have parts, guys. So this is a filament detector, automatic leveling switch. You can see here on the baggie they have a sticker saying what this item is. And it looks to be the hot end here in the box, and that's what it looks like. So it does have two fans on each side for the part cooling, and quite an interesting heat break. It's like a solid aluminum, and here's our 0.4 nozzle with the heater block. So this is definitely a kit style printer here. So next we'll go to the medium box, and this box looks like has our screen here, and it's actually a quite large screen. So it appears to be a touch screen, and it's on this metal bracket here, and looks like we have more ports here for other things. I definitely like the size of the screen, very nice. So it looks like this is the USB adapter cable that will probably mount to here, and then the other end to the board. So if you enjoy putting a kit together, this printer is definitely one of those printers. Alright, so let's go to the large box now. Okay, so here it looks like we have the bed, the heated bed. So it comes with a sticker that's like a Build-Tech type material, I guess. Usually these blue kind, they stick really good, and I can feel the texture is nice. We have an aluminum bed that's heated, and it is a 24 volt bed, and it looks like our connectors are soldered here, and this part here will go to the power supply. So the next part here looks to be like the frame that the bed mounts to, and then this rides up and down on rods. And here's our Z-rod bushing, brass bushing. So it looks like we have the US plug. Perfect. There's a motor here, stepper motor. Not sure what this is for, but it does have a plastic gear here. So this might be the extruder motor. Here's the branding on the motor. Hardware for the bed, springs and bolts. Looks to be some kind of rubber protective little sleeves or something. Some wire tubing, I guess, to hide the wires in. And then we got another box which has a bunch of little stuff in it. So we have some kind of bracket, a 16 gigabyte flash drive, USB style, very nice. Looks like our accessories with some tools and little nuts and bolts and things like that. Got our PTFE tubing. Looks like feet for the bottom of the printer. Z-axis switch, spool holder, mainboard cooling fan, Titan extruder, that's nice. The belt with some pulleys, some bolts, and 200 grams of gray filament. Very nice. All right, guys, so that appears to be everything. So I'm gonna get everything organized and we'll start building this thing. All right, so before we proceed to step one, I got the base up here and it looks like there is, well, let me show you guys a little closer here. So if you can look at it, so if you can see there's like a sandwich. There's aluminum, looks like, on the top and bottom layer of the acrylic part. So that's quite interesting. But there's a little plastic layer there that I would like to peel off. So I'm gonna go ahead and take all that plastic off and then we'll continue. All right, so I got the plastic off, and one of the things that annoys me, you know, they put all the hardware on top of the plastic, and then when you go to pull it off, it all is like there's residue left everywhere. Because you can't rip it off completely like, you know, this right here. You have to take everything apart and put it back together just to get the plastic off. And even here on the edges you can see, you know. So honestly, I would rather have a little bit of scuffs here and there, but them take it off in the factory and then mount all the hardware on it. All right, in any case, let's go ahead and go to step one. And step one looks like we're going to need 4 of the 2020 channels, that frame, that box frame, and some bolts. So here we have the 4 2020s, and here is our boxed frame. So it appears that the box frame is the same all the way around, and then this just goes on top of it. So it actually sits in the groove. Well, you can see that piece right there, it goes down in there. So it's quite a snug and nice fit. And so here's a nice detail. The A here stands for the hardware, and you have a big A right here, and all the hardware has A, B, C, D, E, F, G on it. So that's quite nice and easy to find. Definitely like how they simplify that. So if we look at the 2020 channel, we can see that there is some threaded hole there, and that's where the bolt will go through here. Should fit in here quite tight. So the channel actually slides between these two into that hole, so it's quite a snug fit in there. But when it does, it'll look just like this, and then we're going to put our bolt through there. So we are going to need some tools. I'm going to go ahead and pull the baggie out that has our little tools here, and it looks like there is some hardware in there also, and a little tiny flathead screwdriver. All right, so I'm going to tighten these up, and then we'll go to step 2. All right, so we got our 4 vertical extrusions up. So part 2 looks like a lead screw and the solid bars that go into here. So that's all these pieces here. So here we have the lead screw that will go here, the larger bar and the smaller rod here. I guess it's a rod, not a bar. All right, so I got the printer flipped around to the back side. Basically, the step is not too hard. You're just gonna grab your larger rod. We're gonna insert it into here, and then the other one into here. And then there's a set screw here that we're going to tighten, and that'll clamp it. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I went ahead and took these bolts out and cleaned up the plastic underneath. So we're going to tighten these up pretty reasonably well where they're not moving. Don't over tighten it, just, you know, snug it up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one, and then we'll go to the Z-axis lead here. All right, so for the next part, we're going to loosen one of the clamp bolts on the coupler here. So we're just going to lift it up, you know, about this much or so. Just make a small gap here, close enough. Actually, no, maybe a little higher. Maybe like a 1/4 inch. So it doesn't really matter where it is because it's just a clamp. And just make that, you know, quite tight, but not super tight, just, you know, tight enough to hold. So then we should be able to put our Z-rod in here, just like that. And now we can go ahead and clamp that. And that's it for the back here. Flip this thing back around. So this is the front. Now we're going to be working on putting 2 of these rods in here, and they go right over here. But before we can put them in, we need to go ahead and also loosen the coupler, and also raise this one about the same, you know, level as the one in the back. So you just got to make room for the rod to go inside there. So about half for the shaft and about half of the coupler for the rod. And then we're going to put our rod in here, Might have to back off these little set screws. Eventually it'll go in there, and then we can go ahead and tighten this down. And be careful, since this is just free floating right now, not to break the coupler here by pulling on it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, tighten it all up, and we'll go to step 3, which is step 3 is the bed platform. So all we need to do is kind of, feed it into the rods there and into the lead screw. So it's simple as, putting the rods through here and then the lead screw through this brass bushing. So it should just go right up here, just like that. And then when you get to the screw, all you're going to do is just spin it. And as you spin that, it's going to, feed into the brass bushing. So all this stuff is dry, so we're definitely going to need to put some lube on it. Metal against metal there. I'm going to run this down a bit. Alright, that should be good enough, and that's as simple as that. Alright, so now we go to step 4, which is installing the belt pulleys onto the rods here, these 2 rods up front. And so here we have a big B, so we're looking for a packet of B. And B is our belt with the pulleys. So we're just going to need the pulleys. So here we can see the top of the leads here. And so we're just going to simply install these pulleys on top of that. So we're not sure exactly where they need to be yet, so we can technically just bring them down and then tighten them a little bit. That's what I'm going to do for now, because I'm not sure where they need to be, so it all is going to need to be adjusted. So just leave it right there. So on step 4, I think I kind of missed a detail, and I just accidentally noticed it. You can see how this belt pulley here is that direction, and then this one is upside down, and it kind of shows you here again the same way. So maybe that has to be that way. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this one around before it's too late, and I won't be able to do that later. So hopefully that's correct. Alright, so step 5 is the display. So it looks like we have 3 bolts that go into the display. We got 2 smaller ones and a longer one. So here's our display and the pack that came with it. So I'm guessing we could probably go ahead and install this USB here, because it sure would be hard to install it later. So let's go ahead and do all that. So that's quite simple. There's just a couple bolts here. Not sure which way is up. I guess either way is fine. Alright, so I got the USB in. So I'm thinking we should go ahead and probably put this power switch on in here. And that's inside right there. Quite an easy install, because there is just a plug here that unplugs, I think. So yes, it just unplugs from the plug. And then all we got to do is run this washer out. Put the power switch through the hole there. And then run the washer back down. So align your little power button so it looks nice. And then just tighten this, probably with some pliers or something. Alright, so it's simple as that. And then we're just going to plug this in. Hopefully you guys can see that. Feed everything through, including this ribbon cable. We're going to have to connect that later inside the printer there. And this should go somewhere around here. So we have the provided hardware. We got 2 T-nuts. And then we have a regular square nut here. So the smaller 2 bolts and the T-nuts will go on the bottom channel there. And the longer bolt with the square nut, I think, goes right here. Okay, so it does. And the reason it's longer is because you kind of have to hold it in there, and then it goes behind this acrylic part. So that might be a little tough to do, actually. Might have to raise the printer. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the bottom T-nuts first, and then I'll flip it on its side end. So the T-nuts are quite simple. You just put them in the channel, then move them where you need them, and then take your little bolt and put it through there and spin them on. And they should align to the frame. So I got these 2 started, but I haven't tightened them yet. They're still moving around because I want to make sure I can get this first. So let's try to put this thing on its side. I don't know if it's okay or not. It's definitely a little hard to get to. But you can see, guys, right here is where the square nut goes, just like that. And so now, because we're sideways, it's not falling out. So now I can just gently slide this over until I line up with it. So when I line up with it, I can go ahead and tighten it up. So now I can go ahead and tighten these other 2, make them all nice and snug, and now we're done with the display. So that was a little bit tedious, but not that big of a deal. Just takes a little bit of patience and not too hard. Alright, so the next step is 6, and it looks like it is the top platform there, which is the main piece on the top. And there's actually a little note here that says to insert the limit switch, I guess the Z-axis switch, onto the rod, which I went to the next step, which is 7, and they have it here as it comes apart, but I guess the new version of it does not. So it looks like it needs to be inserted before the whole top goes down, and then you won't be able to, put this in. So let's go ahead and grab this limit switch. So basically we're skipping step 6 to go to 7, looks like, to install this. So it's quite a nice limit switch. It's all metal, and it looks like we have a set screw, or a couple of them, right here on each side. And so according to the diagram, I think it goes on the right side here, And I'm guessing it goes like this because I guess when it goes up it needs to switch. So I guess that's how it goes. Hopefully we did that right. We'll have to take it all apart later. But we'll figure this out, but I think I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Even if it has to go on this side, it doesn't really matter. That should be good right there. Alright, so now we can finally proceed to the top portion here. You can see how nice all this stuff is. This is all metal, guys. It's literally all metal. It's quite a nice construction here. And it's riding on linear rails, Y-axis and the X-axis here. Very nice. And everything feels quite solid and seems to be adjusted the way it needs to be. Alright, so I think it's as simple as lining everything up. So we just have to kind of line up all of our rods here, and then the little ones also. So there's really tiny little set screws up here for this rod to go in. So once it does fall into place, the next part you want to do before tightening all the set screws and tighten these back here, you want to go ahead and put in your bolts on the top here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And the reason we want to do that first is we want to make sure that our top is clamped down nicely before we compress everything and tighten everything up. Alright, so now we're just going to tighten these up really good where they're really tight. Now we can go ahead and tighten all our set screws and these clamps here back here so everything kind of clamps down. So the next step is 7, but that is the Z-axis switch or end stop, and we already did that. So let's go to step 8, and that is looks like the extruder, and it looks like it goes on that corner over there, so on the left corner to the back. And it looks like we're going to need to connect the motor with the extruder, and there might be some brackets there and stuff. And we do have a D here. Let's see if we can figure it out. Alright, so we got the D packet, we got the motor, the one with the gear, the plastic gear, and I'm thinking this is the bracket because it sure looks like it. So here we have the extruder gearing part. According to the picture, at least what it looks like. So this bracket's like this goes, and then our motor goes inside here, plugged down. So these plastic teeth here, they should line up with this gear here, and it looks like they do. And all we got to do now is somehow tighten it all together. So here the D-baggie, we do have, looks like a connector wire and the hardware. So we're going to need 3 of these long bolts here, I think. And then we do have a short one here, which I think it goes over here on this corner. And the reason for that is because this one doesn't have a hole all the way through. So I'm pretty sure the short one goes here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on there, snug it up. And we can see there's this little space for the top of the bolt there. And sure enough, it does look like it comes together just fine. So now we're just going to take 3 of our long bolts and go straight through. And then we're going to tighten it all together. You're going to tighten them up, but not too hard because most of this is all plastic. So just give it a little snugginess and that's good enough. And that's it. And we basically put this thing together. So that should be good to go. So now all we got to do is put it somewhere back here. So I flipped this thing around and it appears to me that it goes somewhere here. The weird part about it is that there's 2 holes here and it's quite wide, but you know, there's only 1 hole to grab to, so I'm guessing it just goes like that. So we're just gonna go with right here, and hopefully that's where it needs to be. We could always move this later up and down or however else it might need to go. In any case, it'll all make sense once we connect it all. If we have to, we'll just move it then. So yeah, that was the step 8, and you can see that's where it goes right there. So for step 9, we're gonna be connecting our hot end assembly to the rail there. All right, so here we have the hot end assembly, and technically I think it's just gonna hold to these 2 bolts here. All you got to do is tighten them up. And so here's the bracket on the top where the hot end rides, and we have 2 bolts already in the bracket there that we need to go. I guess it should be as easy as just putting it on there and then tighten them up. So it looks like we're getting somewhere. We're starting to have a structure and all of our components are coming together. So far everything is going quite well. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this really good, and our hot end is on. But we still have a bunch of wires here everywhere, so. But we'll save all this connecting for last, I guess. Alright, so step 10 is the X-axis belt. And it's referring to the B, which we have a B right here. And there's actually 2 belts in here, guys. And they're quite long, actually, super long. So there's 2 belts that run on the top. Hopefully we can figure this out. So there's 2 mounting points. There's a mounting point up front, and then there's a mounting point on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and try to install these belts. And then once I get them all right, I'll show you guys exactly how they go together. Alright guys, so this could get a little bit confusing. I had to sit there for a little bit and figure it out because the drawing is a little bit hard to understand. But so far this is what I got from it. On the first belt, you're going to start here on the front on the left side, and then you're going to go around this pulley. And then you're going to move this little pulley here wherever you need to. I haven't got it tight yet, I think. Well, maybe I did a little bit. But anyways, we're going to have to adjust this also. And then it comes around there and goes to the top pulley over there. And goes all the way across the top pulley here. And then it goes to this pulley. So it basically goes from here to here and then back to the back of the hot end. So I don't have much experience with Core XYs, and this is why it's a little bit hard to understand, but if you've done this before, obviously you'll get it quick. But if you've never put a machine like this together, it's definitely involved. So hopefully that made sense on the belt. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all the belts together. Alright guys, so I'm done with the belts, and I think I pretty much got it. So how I explained it earlier is like how it goes. So when you go to one corner, one lead screw moves, and then once you do the other corner, the other lead screw. So I think that is correct. In any case, let's go to the next step, which is, well, we did 10 and 11. 11 was the other belt. So 12 is installing the fan. And we have a big E over here, and this is the fan here. So this is how it comes, and there's 2 bolts that screw through the bottom plate here, and there's 2 holes right here for the fan. So it looks like we're gonna have to put our printer on the side, and we can see that there are 2 holes right here, and that's where the fan will go. So, and then obviously we can tighten the top side, and that's pretty much it for the fan. Not sure exactly where it plugs in, but I guess we'll have to see. Alright, so step 13 is the little feet that go on the bottom, but I just realized that we can't put that on because that actually goes together with this. And the way these things work is they hook up to T-nuts, and they'll, I guess, go through these holes here is the idea. So we're gonna have to wait till we hook everything up and finish the printer, and then we can put the feet and the back plate, or the bottom plate. So that leaves us with the last step, which is 14, and that's the little spool holder. So the spool holder goes back here where the extruder is, and that's a G, and it's just a simple little metal spool holder, but it should be fine, it does the job. So we just got bolts with some T-nuts. So basically it'll go somewhere in here, depending. I think we're gonna have to raise this quite a bit more, the extruder. I think I put it way too low. But all this is going to be adjustable, obviously. So we'll just put the spool holder about right here for now, and then we'll adjust it to what we need it later. So, and it'll feed straight into here. And believe it or not, guys, that is all the steps. So, well, actually there is a last step, which is 15. And this is your diagram of how to hook everything up. So this is kind of like the discouraging part, because if you're kind of new to this stuff, this is going to be overwhelming. But, you know, just study the diagram, see where everything goes. We do have heat sinks that we need to put on the drivers also. Connecting the ribbon cable, all the axes, the hot ends, all that stuff. So quite a bit of connecting. I'm going to try to do my best to go through everything step by step. That way, hopefully it'll be a little bit of help. And hopefully we can get this thing all connected and printing here shortly. So, alright guys, so from here on, we're basically on our own. We're going to have to figure out how to put everything together. So my plan is start with the hot end here, because you know this is where all the a lot of the components are, and the wiring, the important stuff. So we got the Z switch here, we got the 2 fan wires, and then obviously we got all of our hot end wires here. So I can definitely appreciate that, you know, you can enjoy this if, you know, if you're into putting things together. But I feel like for 2019, this is a little bit barbaric to leave you with all these wires. If you've never done this, you would probably never figure it out. And not only that, each wire doesn't say anything, it's just wires. And as you can see, guys, this is quite a mess here. So definitely not a printer for someone that's just getting into printing. So we're probably going to run all these wires here with the Bowden tube that's going to be coming out. So we have the Bowden tube in a plastic baggie. So technically all we got to do is just, like, do we just push this through, or do we need to do the whole procedure? I guess I'm just going to do that. Hopefully that works. The tube is quite long. Basically all our wires here channel it nicely through here. And so as we go down, we can see there's a hole here, and I think all the wiring will go in that hole. So yeah, basically you're going to find all your wires, and then you're going to, you know, kind of figure out what the best way to combine them. And then we're going to run them all down through this hole right here. So, but it's probably a good idea not to just jam them all through this hole, but go ahead and do them one by one. Like leave the pack out just hanging around, and then, you know, choose one thing. So let's say we want to do the X-axis end stop, and we're going to put it through this hole. Flip the printer on its side, grab our wire, and then go to the board and basically figure out where the X-axis plugs in. And if we look here on our manual, the the diagram, we can see there is the 1, 2, 3 end stops. So we got the X, the Y, and the Z, and that is right down here. X, Y, Z. We're going to plug that into the first socket. Also, kind of keep in mind how you're going to run all these wires also. Then we're going to have to zip tie them all together so they're not in the way of anything. I guess let's go ahead and do the Y and the Z. That way we can get that over with. So I'm going to grab the Y from the bunch, send it through the hole. And surprisingly, this wire is a little short, but it does reach. We'll plug that right there. So that's the Y. The Z will connect right here. Simple as that. Alright, so the next thing I want to connect while we're over here is the ribbon cable from the screen. And that actually connects right there. But the only issue is, it's kind of hard to get to now. I didn't really realize that. We probably should have put it on before we put on the whole frame on there. But I'm going to go ahead and try to put it on here. So there's a little, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a little black flap that goes up. And according to the manual, the blue part here on the ribbon cable goes up. Just got to carefully stick it in there. And once we put it in there, we can lock it while putting this little black lock down. And I think it's as simple as that. Pretty sure we got it there. That should be it for the ribbon cable. So if you're having too much trouble, maybe it's worth to take this back off and, you know, plug it in there. Alright, so the next two wires I want to do are these hot end wires. So these are the heater wires, and they're, you can see they're bare there on the green connector there. These just go, there's a little holes on top that these go through. So we need to loosen that. And that's why this little tiny screwdriver here, the flat screwdriver was provided, was just for this reason. So let's go ahead and do our first wire. So I don't think it matters where it goes. And that's it. Now they're snug. Alright, so that's done. Slowly but surely we're making some progress. Actually, I just noticed this USB laying around. And I think it just goes right here. There's a plug right here on the board. Alright, so the next plug to go through the hole is the temperature control for the hot end. It actually plugs in right there in that corner. Can see that, and that's it. Alright, so the next wire to go through the hole is the heat break fan cooler. So it's that little fan that cools the radiator, and that wire goes right over here. Alright, and the last wire to go through the hole is the fan, the part cooling fan, the dual fans. That's why there are 4 wires, 2 each. That goes next to this one here. So hopefully these are all correct and where they need to go. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is install the heat sinks on the drivers. So if we look at our board here, we have the stepper drivers here. So this is the X, the Y, and then the Z, and then the extruder motor here, which we haven't plugged in yet, so we need to not forget about that. But in any case, let's go ahead and do these heat sinks. There's 2 smaller ones, and the smaller ones go here on the small chips, and then there's 2 bigger ones. These go right here on the bigger ones. So they just have a double-sided tape. Just gonna remove that and then stick it on there. So hopefully they'll stay stuck on there. Kind of surprised but they don't go ahead and do this at the factory. And these have to go a long ways obviously with the chips. So alright, that's all the heat sinks. I don't know if I did a good job or not, but they are on. So before I forget, let's go ahead and do the extruder motor cable. So one end will go into the extruder motor. By the way, the ends are different. The one that goes on the extruder has 5 pins or 6 pins, and the one that goes into the board has only 4. So let's just go ahead and plug the board in first. Then we'll go through the hole. And so that's most of our wires, or maybe all of them. We do have one more thing left, which is the bed. We do have to hook that up. Actually guys, I was quite wrong. We still have the filament detection. Then we have the auto leveling switch. So the auto leveling switch needs to go all the way to the hot end. We have the actual probing thing, and then we have the wiring that goes there. So basically you're just going to run this wire from the board all the way to the hot end, and then somewhere around the hot end this thing will just be dangling around, and then when you need it you're going to plug it in and then do your bed leveling, I guess. So the automatic bed leveling plug is right here. It's right above the USB. And then we're going to run this wire all the way to the hot end, the other end. So the other wire we have is the filament detection wire, and that goes right over here. So it's right next to the ribbon cable. The detector here, however, we're going to install that, and it'll just plug into here. I'm just going to run this wire out somewhere to the extruder, then we'll figure out how to put in that detector. So yeah guys, so far it's been quite an intensive process here, and see our wiring is not looking so good anymore because we just have a bunch of wires, but we're going to clean all that up in a minute. We got to make sure that we did everything. One of the things that we haven't done is the bed yet. the wiring for the bed also. So I want to go ahead and flip the printer back over and go ahead and install the bed on top. That way we can go ahead and run those wires. And I think after that, that would be all the wiring. Even though it looks like a crazy spaghetti mess, it wasn't actually that hard. It will take a little bit of looking at this diagram, or a lot of looking at this diagram, and figuring out where everything goes. But it's pretty straightforward. A little bit of logical thinking and just kind of looking at everything should all plug in. But the good question is it all going to work? Which we'll be testing out here in a little bit. Alright, so here we have the bed. The wiring is already installed on it. We have soldered wires here on the heated part. And then here we have the temperature probe. So we're going to cut that loose. So this bed actually only has 3 leveling points. So we have 3 of everything. So if you look at the mat here, you can see that you have 1 hole here and 2 holes here. So 1 hole goes to the back and then the 2 to the front. And so after that, our springs will go on there. And there's a drilled hole here in the main frame. Here you can kind of see a little better. So you got 1, 2, and then a third one there in the back right in the middle. So now we're just going to put on these little knobs, and that's it. And that's how our bed goes on here. I don't know why I put the sticker in here, because that technically still needs to be glued on there. I'm losing my mind with all this assembly. Alright, so now that our bed is on, how are we going to route these wires? But I guess they'll go somewhere over here, and then we'll need to feed them to this hole. We got the temperature plug there, and then we have the main heat wires here. So I'm going to flip the printer back on its side, and we're going to finish connecting that. And I think that's everything for the wiring. So we'll go ahead and try to stuff all our wires in here. The only thing about that is probably going to be a little time consuming. Alright, so the heated bed temperature sensor actually plugs in into this little adapter here, or whatever that is. A plug plugged in here next to it. So that's where the heated bed part goes, the sensor. And the actual main wires, the power wires here, they actually go right here. So I'm not sure if it matters, positive or negative, because the diagram doesn't even show. So that makes me believe that it doesn't matter, because it's just a heating element. So we're just going to copy what's on this side, even though it's all backwards, because 1 is over here and 2 is over here. Here 1 is over here, but here if we look at it, the red wire is on the bottom. So we're just going to go ahead and put the red wire on the bottom too. Just like that. And then we're going to tighten it, and we'll do our black wire, and we got our heated bed connected. So now we can close this little door, and we're good to go. And that's pretty much everything for the wiring. There is one more thing that we haven't done, which is this fan wiring here. So the issue is I can't find anywhere on here where it says to plug in the fan. If we look at the board, there's actually a plug right here, and there's actually one here that we can try. Hopefully you can see there's a blue one right here, positive and negative. So this thing has a positive and negative, so I have a feeling, and it plugs right in there. I have a feeling that maybe that's where it goes. So I'm just gonna wing it and see if that works. Alright guys, so that completes our wiring hookup. So this was definitely a little bit intense, and now we need to clean up all this wiring. So I'm going to be working on that. Once I get it all cleaned up and bunched together, we're going to flip the printer over and power it on and see if everything works like it's supposed to. Alright, so I think I'm finally making progress with this thing. So I got all the wires worked out, and look how nice it looks now. So here's my hot end wires. I got them nicely tucked away, and then I kind of used some electrical tape here to hold the Bowden tube together with that. So we got the tube going into the extruder, and then the wiring keeps going around and then down here into that hole. So everything turned out quite well. And then we have our bed wiring here, and I went ahead and used the provided little sticker mount there to hold it. So that way, there's no stress on the bed and it's not going to pull it out. Yeah, it actually cleaned up really well, and it's looking really nice now. So one of the things that I have no idea where to put is this filament detector. So I guess I'm going to have to figure that out eventually, but because the spool goes right here, the filament detector has to go somewhere between the spool and the extruder here. I mean, it's possible that we can just throw it in there and it'll just kind of, ride around in there. Maybe that's an option. But overall, we're done, and this build is definitely taking quite some time. I think I have at least 3 hours into it now, maybe more. Oh, and I went ahead and did put the sticker on the bed also. So that was simple as peeling it and just, sticking it on. So the next thing I want to do is I want to power it on and make sure it turns on, because I feel a little bit nervous because I've never put this much parts together from scratch. So hopefully we did everything right and it's going to power on. So let's do that next. I'm going to go ahead and take off this little screen protector on the display. And it just pulls off with this little tab here. All right, so I got the power cord plugged in. Let's hit that power button and hope everything goes well. All right, here we go. So nothing happened, but the light is on. And I'm thinking the reason for that is because we still have the power button to push here. So let's go ahead and try that. Wow, look at that. It's actually working. I am very relieved. All right, well, that's a good sign. So now we need to check the mechanics of everything, making sure everything works. One of the things I really want to check is that fan I plugged in underneath there, the board cooling fan. So I'm going to go ahead and put this thing on the side and check that out, make sure everything's all right underneath. All right, so the machine is flipped on the side and we can see that there is life under here. So the power supply has power. Our board has power. Everything's glowing here. This thing has power here. And this thing also has power here. So everything is lighting up and glowing everywhere. I haven't really clamped everything down here with the wiring, so it kind of looks like a little bit of a mess. But in any case, what I see is that our fan here that we plugged into that plus and minus earlier is running. And you can hear me touching it. And it seems to be working just right. And it's blowing quite well right over here. I can feel the airflow right over these heat sinks. So if you're putting one of these together, that's definitely where this fan can plug in, into that positive and negative pins over there. Other than that, everything appears to be fine. Our display's working, so we hopefully hooked up everything right, but we'll find out here in a second once we start moving the printer and preheating it and all that stuff. Alright, so we're back around, and here we can see the screen, and there's some status here on our temperature gauges, so hopefully we hooked that up right. Let's go to settings. Okay, this looks all new to me and a little bit different than maybe we're not supposed to be in this menu. Let's go ahead and okay, here we go. That's the menu we're looking. All right, so we have movements here. We have unlock motor, fan control, light. What's the light all about? Okay, so I don't think this applies to us. I don't know if there's any lights in here at all. Okay, so I just clicked on the bed leveling and it started moving. So I guess we'll see if it works. So I guess it's kind of like out of homing. So the X worked, the Y works, and there goes the Z. And the Z works. So all of our axes work. Very nice. The only thing I forgot to do is to lube these Z axes and all the rods. So we do definitely need to do that because it's all just dry. So all right. So these minis are definitely something to get used to. Okay, so this is our preheat. All right. So yeah, it's just a matter of learning the menu system here. What in the world is this? Is this load and unload? Is that what that is? Oh, okay. So overall, everything is pretty logical and seems to be all of our axes are working. So before I preheat it, I'm going to go ahead and put some grease on it. So I had already some grease laying around. So you might have to, find some grease for yourself. And then also we would want to put some grease into these linear bearings, maybe just a little bit. All right, so I lubed up all the rods, or both of the rods and the screw. And also I went ahead and put lube on all the linear bearings. All right, so we got it lubed and I ran it down the bed all the way down. And so now the bed should move really nice and smooth and quiet. So we'll see in a second. It is almost pretty much all the way down right now. So you can see that. And there it goes. So it does move quite fast. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and preheat it. Make sure our hot bed and hot end both get heated. All right, so here we go. Let's see. So this says 200 and that's 60. So that's going up and that's going up also. So yeah guys, looks like we had a pretty successful installation. Everything seems to be working. So it's heating up quite quick. Let's see what it feels like to the hand. Oh yeah, it's definitely getting warm. And I'm sure the hot end is getting hot. So yeah guys, also make sure that your fan is working in here. Mine looks like it's spinning. So it's ultra quiet though. You can't barely hear it. Actually the whole printer on standby is quite quiet. So that's a plus. All right, so not even a minute later, and this is what we have. The hot end is hot, and that, or about a minute later, I guess. And the bed's almost there too. Look at that. So very quick startup here. All right, so I'm pretty confident that this thing's gonna print and work. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna put the cover there, and then we'll start our first print. All right, so this is what the bottom cover looks like when it's covered. Definitely finishes off the machine nicely. Alright, so let's go ahead and level the bed next, because obviously we're going to need to do that before we do anything else. So it looks like we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 points, or 5, that we can go off of. So let's click on point 1. It's moving there. So I like to use a postie notey. So the back only has one screw, so we'll probably have to go around a couple times to go around to make sure we get it right. And also guys, looks like we put our belts on all correctly. Alright, so I went around and got the bed leveled. So the next thing I want to try is the out of bed leveling mesh thingamajigger. So technically I think what we're supposed to do, and I left my wire up here, you can see, is plug this into here and then kind of probe it on auto leveling here. So let's try that out. All right, so I got the sensor connected. Now I'm going to hit out of bed leveling here. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do after this. All right, so I can't really figure out how to use the out of bed leveling. So I'm just going to skip that part. Maybe eventually I'll figure it out and then I'll have an update video. I don't know, maybe it's our connection, maybe I'm not doing it right, but it's just going back and forth, but it's not actually doing the out of bed level. Another cool thing that this screen has here is that you can offset your z-axis here by 0.05 millimeters at a time. Just kind of nice if you need to do a little offset. But the bed actually looks really flat, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues printing. All right, so for the next part, we need to load some filament. So I'm just gonna put in some red filament here, and I got my bracket here adjusted where it sits just above the table there. And so obviously, you know, our filament will go into here. All right, so I pushed the filament through the extruder and then all the way around to the hot end. So we're doing preheating right now, which we're there already. Wow, that was quick. So here we have the USB drive. So hopefully something is on there, but this is quite nice. It's a metal little drive. We are on USB. So apparently the USB flash drive doesn't have anything on it. Oh, by the way, guys, there's a power button here that you can shut off or shut down or restart the printer. Let's go ahead and try to restart it just in case for the USB flasher. Oh, still no files. Okay. Alright, so I guess we need to put something on the USB flash drive and then we'll do our first print. Alright, so I spliced a couple little shark vacuum wheels that I need. It's kind of a short print, about 30 minutes or less. So there it is right there. So I used Ender 3 profile, so hopefully that'll be fine. So how to choose here? Okay, so you got to use the arrows to go down. So once you choose that, push OK, start, yes. Alright, this is the screen we get. Wow, this is a really large screen, guys. So it looks like the bed is heating up first, and then the hot end will heat up. So here we have options: speed rate, extrusion rate, hot end temperature, and heat bed temperature. What is this? Okay, more stuff. Change filament, cooling fan, and lighting. And here you also have hot buttons for the offset. So if you need to go up a little or down a little, you got that. That's awesome. So the bed's almost hot, and this should start heating up, and we'll see how it does. All right, so it looks like it's purging there, so it's working. So it's making a skirt. And there goes the wheel. So here on the screen we can see that we have the status of printing, how long it's been so far. This is how far up we are on the z-axis, 0.28. The percentage that it's finished, the file that we're printing, the extruder, the heated bed, not sure what that is. It says 0 and 2, and I guess these are options here. Okay, so that means pause. Okay, so this is stop and pause. So I actually pause the print. No big deal, we'll just restart it. Probably gonna mess it up a little bit, but that's okay. At least we know that feature works pretty good. So yeah, it looks like it's printing away pretty good, and it's looking very promising. So as it's printing, I kind of want to talk about the belts one more time so nobody's confused. So the easiest way to understand it is that if you, let's say, take this left side on the front, so you're just gonna go from there around the little pulley, then around this rod here, and then all the way back on the top pulley. You can go all the way around here, and then you're going to turn and come to this back side on the right side. So essentially this belt comes back here and this belt comes back here. So it's like an X. So if you understood that, I think that'll help you with the belt system. So I had a little bit of issue trying to figure it out, so hopefully that'll help out a little bit there. So let's go ahead and go from this one. So if we go from the front this way, we go around the little pulley and then around this rod here, all the way around to the bottom, and then around that bottom pulley, and then we're going to turn on this pulley back to here. So we came from here to here, and hopefully that makes a little more sense. And one thing I did forget to show you guys is it comes with this little pin here, and so this is just a to use for the touch screen, so it's, you know, easier, I guess, to push stuff with the pen instead of your finger. So that's kind of nice that they include that. All right, so we're really close to being done. So as you can see, guys, they turned out really good. I would say quite perfect. That's what it looks like. So here's the bottom, which is absolutely perfect. The walls are perfect. So it's looking quite phenomenal. I'm thinking that we can go ahead and print something more complex, maybe like a benchy, and see how that turns out. Alright, so I started a benchy. One of the things that I've noticed is that these two fans have come on and they're very quiet. The only kind of noise I hear, I think, are maybe from stepper motors here but it's not like that really loud stepper noise sound. It's very minor and sounds different. And we can see our print over there is doing really good. So we're just gonna let it print, and I have a head feeling the benchy is gonna come out amazing. I don't know why. This whole setup just makes sense. You know, being a Core XY machine, it's ultra precise. And then we have 2 blower fans there. So, and I am printing at 0.12 millimeter layer height, so it's going to be quite fine, and it should turn out awesome. So now that it's all built and printing, it's actually quite an attractive machine. It feels lean, but at the same time, it's high scale overall, and that screen is huge. It's beautiful. So I wasn't going to record the benchy till the end, but it turned out so phenomenal. I just want to show it off right now. So I just finished printing, and I'm pretty blown away by the results. So let's go ahead and grab it here. Can we grab it? Okay, yep. Alright guys, so here is the benchy, and it turned out awesome. Honestly, like, I was blown away when I saw about half of it. I was just like, man, this is crazy. Just look at it. I mean, there's a little bit of, you know, whatever that is, vibration or ghosting, but it's very minimal. And the retractions are great, and the cooling is great. Everything is great. It's literally like a perfect benchy. So this is not the filament that I used to benchmark the benchies. This is just a cheaper PLA. I can't imagine when I use the other filament, it'll probably be even better than this. And I just can't believe it how good this is. And look at that, you can even read the 3D benchy. So this printer might take the cake for the best printer I got now, or at least in print quality. I know the Ender 2 so far I think has delivered the best benchy, but this one's gonna be very close and most likely better, especially with the overall print because of the overhangs. But you can see the reflection, guys. It's just mind-blowing. That good. Look at that. It's like a mirror almost. Very good. Alright, so I printed quite a few things, as you can see here, and we even have a bunny here. So, but yeah guys, this printer is really interesting, and the reason I say that is because, you know, it's not a printer that anyone can buy and just use, but for someone that's already knows 3D printer, this is the route they take. And it's kind of crazy, but you wouldn't be able to appreciate this thing unless you knew what was going on. So this makes this machine quite unique for that reason. Let's go ahead and look at the rest of the prints that I made. So you guys already seen the benchy and the little wheels wherever they are. The thing that's really going to give us a good view of what's going on is this little test print here, and this is quite a small one, if you can see that in my hand. So it's quite precise and detailed. So if we look at it, we can see that the print is very nice, and this is the blue filament that I always have trouble with. So it prints nice, it just gets clogged sometimes, but we had no issues this time with this printer. But look at the turn angles on the top. Everything looks great. Obviously the backside is what's going to be the issue. And so we have a typical about 50 degrees when it starts getting nasty. So that's pretty average for, you know, 3D printers, technically decently good cooling. But what's more impressive is if you look inside here, you can see all of the small little details that this thing just conquers. And look at that bridging. It's kind of hard to focus on all this, but hopefully you guys can see how amazing this printer is. And here's some gap calibration here, and it goes almost to the end. It does lock that one up at the end, looks like, but the rest of them are open. So I don't know, this thing really blew me away. I was very surprised. I might start using this thing on all the printers just to, you know, so we can have a better idea. So the bottom is perfect, and the little line that you see here is whenever I put my GoPro on the plate, I kind of, you know, pushed on it just a fuzz there. So after the test print there, I wanted to do a spiralized mode. And so I printed a little vase. Now I kind of was doing an experiment because I wanted to make it a lot thicker, which is it's very thick, as I upped the flow rate to 125%. And I got a much thicker coat, but I think I sacrificed the finesse a little bit of the print quality. So the lines that you see in there is just discoloration of the filament. And when I did take it off, I broke off the bottom. I took it off too hastily, and printing it thicker actually made it super strong. It's crazy. But it still cracks, obviously, if you push it too hard. So quite a good print there. So after that, I wanted to print something a little bit more interesting. I forgot I had the printer running here. Let's turn this thing off. Shut down. Simple as that. So I printed this mechanical elevator, or whatever you want to call it, razor. Forgot what it was called exactly, but this thing is awesome. And it literally prints like this. Just, you know, flat on the bed there, and it makes all the mechanics of it inside. And this thing printed perfectly because when I took it off the bed and spun the knob, it worked from the first try. Just crazy. I did not believe how good that turned out. And you can see here how awesome that turned out. So it's not perfect. Let me show you some of the issues that it did have a little bit. Is we do have a little bit of overhang here that's kind of drooping down, and some on this side. But other than that, there's no other real issues with the print. Now when it was printing, it did break loose because I did not use any kind of brim or anything, and I didn't realize how thin this wall would be. I should have put a brim around it because the wall eventually broke loose. And let's see, this one of them stayed fine, but one of them broke loose, and I have a little step here. But yeah, other than that, if you can see the reflection there in that wall, maybe that is an excellent print, guys. All right, and so the last but not least is we have this little bunny here, and he's actually functional, or she, whoever this is. His head comes up, and what you do, I guess, is you put some candy in there, those round ones, and they kind of roll down here, and there's a little lip that holds them, and then, you know, as you grab them, they come down. So quite a cute little print for sure, and it's quite large too. You can see it in my hand. And this one turned out really good also, guys. Like, I don't know if I can show you too well because white is hard to show, but here you can even see on his ears, his face there. Very good overall. So I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's still, for some reason, a little bit of layering. It's very minor, but there is some. So, and obviously the hinge works. So quite a nice design and definitely cool. So yeah, this printer is quite a nice printer. It really gives you that DIY experience with this thing and the reward of, you know, assembling it. So I don't know, guys, lately here we've been getting excellent printers, and I will have to say that this is one of them for sure. So it is all metal, practically no plastic on this thing, barely anything. Most of the printer is metal, which is quite amazing, and why it makes it a little bit heavy, but that's a good thing in my book. And another huge thing about it is it has linear rails on the X and Y axes. And I don't think I ever mentioned the bed size. It's 200 by 200 by 200. So it's a little bit less than, you know, your average typical these days. But it's big enough to still enjoy, obviously, and print pretty much anything on here. And also to mention this really large, I think it's 3.5 inch, which is a really nice touch here. You get quite nice quality all around with this thing. So overall, I would have to give this thing a huge thumbs up. And if you've been in 3D printing for a while, then I think this machine is definitely for people like that, because you do have to assemble it, and you saw the process is not that simple. If you're getting started, then I don't think this machine is for you. So overall, an excellent machine and a great value for what you get. In any case, guys, so if you're interested in this printer, I'll leave some links in the description, so check those out. I know this video is quite long. It's probably my longest video by far. So if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. And if you want to see more 3D printing videos, I do a lot of reviews here, and I already have a lot of videos, so check those out. And there'll definitely be a lot more to come, so stay tuned. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.